The clatter of plates and the low hum of dinner conversation were the soundtrack of Eller's world, a world of borrowed elegance that ended at the swinging kitchen doors. Her feet, encased in worn-out non-slip shoes, screamed with a familiar ache, a persistent throb that traveled all the way up her spine. Each step was a reminder of the chasm between the life she served and the life she lived. On table 9, a bouquet of crimson roses stood in a crystal vase, their perfection a stark contrast to the frayed cuffs of her uniform hidden just out of sight. She allowed herself a single deep breath, inhaling the scent of seared steak and ambition before squaring her shoulders and approaching the booth in the corner, the one that had been her purgatory for the last 2 hours. The 4 men of table 7 were not just customers. They were an event draped in tailored suits that cost more than ancient hatchback. They were a fortress of wealth and casual arrogance. They had ordered the most expensive items on the menu, sent back 2 bottles of wine for being not quite the right vintage, and snapped their fingers for her attention as if she were a malfunctioning appliance. Their leader, a man with silver-flecked hair and a watch that glinted like a predator's eye, was named Mr. Thorne. He had just finished regaling his companions with a story about a corporate takeover. His voice a low, confident rumble that had no interruption. As Alara approached with the heavy leather bill folder, her heart began to hammer against her ribs, a frantic bird in a cage of exhaustion. She placed the folder gently on the table. "Gentlemen, whenever you're ready," she said, her voice a carefully modulated mask of politeness. Mr. Thorne didn't even look at her. He picked up the folder, glanced at the total, and a cold smile played on his lips. He tossed it back onto the table. "There's a mistake," he announced. Not to her, but to his friends. "We're not paying for the second bottle of Payot Neuer. It was subpar." All's blood ran cold. "Sir," she said, her voice trembling slightly despite her best efforts. "You consumed the entire bottle. I can't remove it from the bill." "It's not a request," Thorne said, his eyes finally meeting hers, and the chill in them stole her breath. "Consider it a lesson in quality control. Take it off or we pay nothing." The world seemed to shrink to the space around that table. The laughter from other booths felt like a mockery. Era's mind raced. The bill was over $800. The tip alone would have covered her electricity bill. But if they refused to pay, the restaurant policy would force her to cover the walkout from her own major wages. It would wipe out a week of back-breaking work, of smiling through insults, of dreaming of a better life for her and her son, Leo. She could see his small, serious face in her mind the way he'd asked just last night if she could come to his school play. She'd had to say no because she was working a double shift. Tears, hot and humiliating, pricked at the corners of her eyes. She blinked them back furiously. "Please, sir," she whispered, the word tasting like ash. I'll have to get the manager." One of the other men, a younger one with a slicked-back ponytail, chuckled. "Go ahead, get whoever you need. We're not moving until this is resolved. If you believe that everyone deserves a little kindness and a second chance, then you're in the right place. Please show your support for this channel, Soulful Stories, by hitting that like button, subscribing for more stories that touch the heart, and sharing this video with someone who needs to hear it." Today, Lara turned, her legs feeling like lead, the vibrant restaurant blurring into a nauseating swirl of color and noise. She was drowning in their entitlement. As she took a shaky step towards the manager's office, a movement from a nearby table caught her eye. A man who had been sitting alone for the past hour, quietly reading a book and nursing a cup of coffee, was now standing up. He was older, with a kind, weathered face and dressed in simple, comfortable clothes, a stark contrast to the finery of table 7. He had paid his bill 20 minutes ago, but had remained seemingly lost in his novel. He gave a small, almost imperceptible nod, a gesture of profound calm, and then he walked right up behind the 4 men in the booth. The atmosphere shifted. The air grew still and heavy. Mr. Thorne, sensing a presence, started to speak without turning. "I fear the manager. This waitress of yours needs to learn." His words died in his throat as he finally glanced over his shoulder. His face, so assured and condescending moments before, underwent a terrifying transformation. The color drained from his cheeks, his jaw went slack, and his eyes widened in pure, unadulterated shock. The other 3 men followed his gaze, and one of them actually gasped. The older man placed a gentle hand on Era's shoulder, a simple touch that felt like an anchor in a storm. His voice, when he spoke, was quiet, yet it carried through the sudden silence like a clear bell. "Is there a problem here, Era?" He knew her name. Her mind reeled. How did he know her name? "Mr. Thorne," the older man continued, his gaze settling on the silver-haired man who now looked like a scolded schoolboy. "Alexander Thorne, it's been a long time. I believe you were trying to secure a meeting with my foundation just last month to discuss a rather significant investment in your new venture capital firm." Alexander Thorne could only manage a strangled noise. The man with the ponytail looked as if he wanted the earth to swallow him whole. The older man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I am Arthur Pendleton, and this," he said, his hand still resting reassuringly on shoulder, "is my granddaughter." The revelation landed not with a shout, but with the devastating force of a tidal wave. Era stared at Arthur, her grandfather, the man who had built a billion-dollar empire from a single hardware store. The man who believed that true character was built from the ground up. He had insisted she learn the business from the bottom to understand the value of every dollar and the dignity of every person who earned them. He came here incognito once a month just to have a coffee and watch her work. Proud of the strong, resilient woman she was becoming. Arthur Pendleton's voice remained calm, but each word was a carefully placed stone. "In all my years,